town hall here in Brampton. My name again is Nat Manway, proud Brantonian, and your moderator for tonight's event. Tonight you will all have the opportunity to participate in the democratic system. The beauty of democracy is that we have the right to question and challenge. I can assure you that the Premier is here to address your concerns and talk about tough issues. With that said, there are a few ground rules I need to communicate to ensure that we make the most of our 1 hour together. First and foremost, you'll be provided the opportunity to ask the Premier whatever you like. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is off limits, so please ask away. We also want to get through to as many questions as possible, so please focus on one specific question and refrain from any follow-up questions. With the hour that we have together, we want to ensure that everyone has equal opportunity to address the Premier. I also want to point out that you have runners situated all around the room, so if you have a question, just kindly raise your hand. As well, it's no secret that as Brantonians, we are some of the most passionate people around, and that will definitely be displayed here tonight. All we ask is that you maintain a level of respect to those individuals asking questions, as well as to the Premier when she answers. We in Brampton are excited about this opportunity, so let's make the best of it in a very constructive manner. So less comments, more questions, more dialogue. And now, without further ado, please welcome the Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne.
Good evening.
Welcome to Brampton.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I got to ask you, Premier, first and foremost, why was it so important for you to bring this to Brampton?
So it is really important to me to have an opportunity to talk to people all over the province. And I have to say that Brampton is one of the most thriving and dynamic communities in, not just in the GTA, but in the province. And so I really wanted to have a chance to be here and to hear folks' concerns. And so that's exactly why I'm here. And I want to thank everybody for coming out. It is a cold night, and I know we're Canadians, and that's all good. But thank you very much for making the effort. Really appreciate it.
Premier, what do you want to say to those who feel that these town halls are a way to change the current government perception before the upcoming election in June?
So what I would want to say to people who might have that perspective is that my whole political career, I've been doing this. I have been spending time listening to people, talking to people all across the province. When I started as a school trustee, even before I was a school trustee, I spent a lot of time facilitating meetings and providing opportunities to air concerns in communities. So it's actually what I believe in. And when I first was in this role now, I was actually kind of kidded by the media and by the opposition. I was teased about talking about conversations, because I talked about how important conversations were to me in order to figure out A, what people were thinking, and B, how we could solve the challenges that we face as a society. So it's what I believe in. It's what I've been doing throughout my career. And, you know, even in the last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time at town meetings, at town hall meetings on university and college campuses, for example. So it is what I believe in, and so it's a continuation of the work that I've been doing.
So some of the issues that are going to come up tonight will be around healthcare, education, transportation, and electricity, which made headlines last week as the Goreway Power Station had manipulated the system and ratepayers out of approximately $100 million. What do you think happened there?
So on that issue in particular, the independent system operator found out about this breach, basically, ordered an internal audit, and $100 million has been paid back, and there was a $10 million million fine levied because of what had happened. So, two things about that. First of all, it shouldn't have happened. There's no question about that. It's unacceptable. But it did happen. It was determined to be a problem, and there was a remedy to it. So I think that now what has happened is that the systems have changed in terms of the way expenses are accounted for, and so that's a good learning on the part of the organization. But the system worked in the sense that the money was being paid back, and there was a fine levy. So there was a consequence to that.
Well, Premier, that's all of my questions, so now I'm going to officially turn to the room and allow you to engage in the Q&A portion of this town hall.
Great. So the chairs are in sections, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a question section by section, and so we'll work around the room, okay? So I will start over here. Go ahead. Gaz has got a mic for you.
Hi, Madam Premier. I sense that from what I've seen, you want to have a fairer and better Ontario. However, with the case of Bill 148, Fair Wages, Better Jobs Act, there are unintended consequences. In the case of unfunded financial obligations, you'll be putting thousands of people who have intellectual disabilities and their families at risk through less supports and services impacting vulnerable individuals. My question to you is, will you immediately commit to financially supporting the families, agencies, and individuals that will be impacted by Bill 148, which is now law under your administration?
So you're talking specifically about organizations like community living in the community where, yeah. So thank you for asking that question, because it's really important to me that we look at the whole context that we're operating in. And let me just say off the top that I really appreciate the work and the advice that we're getting from the not-for-profit sector, because you're doing important work, and we need to make sure that we balance all of the needs. So the reason that we are increasing the minimum wage is that we have really hundreds of thousands of people in Ontario who are earning minimum wage and are not able to look after themselves. They're not able to make ends meet. They're not able to look after their families. And so that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable at any point, but it's certainly unacceptable in a province like Ontario, where we see our economic growth doing very well. We're leading economic growth in the country. Corporate profits are very high. Unemployment is at the lowest rate in 17 years. And so this is a time when we need to make sure that people are feeling the benefit of that strong economy. But that's not necessarily happening. So that's why we're raising the minimum wage, so that people can make ends meet. Right now, we are looking at what those costs will be for not-for-profits across government. We already have made a commitment to put in place support for childcare, because the childcare system will be dealing with many of the same things that you're talking about. But we are gathering data about not-for-profits, and yes, I will commit to bringing forward a plan to help support those organizations that are supported by government, that get transfer payments, and are going to be having to go through this transition. So thank you for raising that. Go here and then to this section. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add on to that a little bit about our community living agencies.
We definitely have some human rights issues going on with our pay equity. You're well aware of it. Karen Chan is well aware of it. That is part of the retention strategy of our community living agencies. And when is that pay equity going to be paid? You are the funder as the province. We are a transfer agency. When is our pay equity coming?
So that is a related question, and so I appreciate you raising it. And as I said, I use community living as an example of an organization that we need to make sure can get through this transition in the best way. And so we are working at gathering that information, and we'll be coming forward with the plan.
It's been 30 years. We're still waiting.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to take a question here. Right at the back. We'll come back to you. We've got two mics.
Thanks very much, Premier, for coming to Brampton. A question on the deficit. Does Ontario have a balanced budget?
Yes, we do.
Even though the financial accountability officer said no?
So what the financial accountability officer said was that there has been an accounting dispute, as you know. We brought in a panel of expert accountants to look at the way that pension assets had been accounted for 16 years in Ontario, so for a very long time. Not just our government, but previous governments had accounted for pension assets in a certain way. There was a disagreement between those experts and the Auditor General, and the Financial Accountability Officer basically said, if you work with this accounting opinion, there's one outcome. If you work with this accounting opinion, then there's another outcome. So we have used the accounting treatment that the experts recommended to us. And by that standard, our budget is balanced. And interestingly, the other parties in the legislature have accepted those numbers, and so are using those as the premise. So yes, our budget is balanced for the first time in a decade. Over here.
Norman, thank you so much. My question relates to the future of basic income. Of course, the pilot is currently taking place as of this year, but considering the results of this pilot will not be seen for another 3 years, many point to the announcement of this pilot as maybe a court for votes in 2018. Considering this is supposed to replace social assistance, and many say that social assistance hasn't been corrected since the retrenchment during the Harris years, the Common Sense Revolution. Why do you think basic income has a future in Ontario?
So this is a great question because, we are grappling as a society with a whole bunch of issues around a changing economy. And one of the issues that we're dealing with is how do we reconcile the fast pace of change of technology, for example, and dislocation of workers, and the different way that manufacturing is done, for example. Understanding that will mean that there will be many workers who will be dislocated and will either have to retrain or will not be able to find work. And at the same time, we have a social assistance system that over the years has not necessarily served people well. We can look at it, we can say it's been punitive, there are real problems with it. So we're doing two things. We are doing a basic income pilot, and it is true, it's a 3-year pilot. Basic income, the notion of basic income has been talked about in this province for 30, 35 years. There's been a ton of research on it. There was research that was done earlier in this country, but we haven't tackled it here in Ontario. So I think it's time, for many reasons, to put in place a basic income pilot and to gather information from that and see if outcomes like better health outcomes, better retention of jobs, better retention of young people in school, whether those are the kinds of outcomes that we will see, and those are the questions we have. And at the same time, we are reviewing and making changes in our social assistance program. So we're not waiting till we get all the results from the basic income pilot. We are already making changes in the social assistance system to make it less punitive, to make it work for people better, because it's not fair the way it functions right now, and so we need to find ways to make it fair for people and to support them in their lives, help them to get work or retraining if they need to, and that's exactly the kind of review that we're doing. So we're operating on those two paths. Okay, over here.
Good evening, Madam Premier.
Good evening.
My name is Gail Miles. I'm a regional councillor, and I'm here this evening with our Mayor, Linda Jeffrey, and also members of Brampton City Council. So I'm speaking on behalf of all of us.
Welcome. Can the councillors put up their hands so we all know who you are? Great, and I saw Mayor Jeffrey over here somewhere, yeah. Great,
So
Thanks
welcome
for being
to
here.
Canada's second fastest growing community.
there you go.
So
See, that's why I'm here now.
So the question I have for you this evening is not going to be a surprise to you because it's a question that Brampton has been asking the province of Ontario since 2004. So I'm standing here 14 years later and I'm going to ask you, can you commit today in the city of Brampton that you will ensure our community is fairly represented at Peel Regional Council in time for the 2018 municipal election? Premier, it's December and we don't have any more time. We've gone through your process 4 times. We're never going to reach a triple majority because Mississauga stops us at every turn. So the only person that is going to allow Brampton to receive equitable representation at the Region of Peel, Madam Premier, is you. And we all know in 2018, you have changed the number of seats in the legislature from 107 to 123 for the very reason that the population is growing. So will you please do the same for us, for all of these people? One more thing, I'll sum up. By the time you go home this evening, Brampton will have grown by 40 new residents, many new Canadians. So today, based on the population, Brampton Regional Councillors represent 99,000 people compared to Mississauga at 72 and Caledon at 16. We need you to assist us so that this community has fair and equitable representation at the Region of Peel.
Thank you for that question. We should have one of those stickers that shows the people moving into Brampton. So, yes, I'm very aware of this challenge. I know that it is something that you have advocated for. And let me just say that one of the principles that got me involved in provincial politics was the principle that local democracy was very important, that decisions about the fate of municipalities should be, to the greatest extent possible, made at the local level. And so, as you mentioned, there is a process in place that would allow the regional council to change its composition. And I know that that has not worked. I know that. And I also know that the input from Brampton has informed the legislation that we have put in place. So that after 2018, and that's where we're going to have the tension, because after 2018, if there is no consensus on moving towards representation by population, because that is the point of the change that you're looking for, right? Is to move regional council closer to representation by population. And so after 2018, with that legislation, if that doesn't happen, if after a review, because what we've said is there has to be a review after every second election, if that doesn't happen after 2018, then we're also in the legislation, we've given the minister the authority to move and to make the change him or herself. So we have taken your advice. I understand that you would like to see us move in and do something sooner than that. But I just want you to know we've taken your advice. The legislation is really fashioned on advice that was given to us by you and other people in the province who are dealing with a similar problem.
So you're not willing to help us?
Well, as I said, there is a local mechanism that could be used, but we've got legislation that will allow the minister after the 2018 election to make a change. Okay, we got this section. Okay.
I didn't discuss that issue. After 40 years, consumers are still facing 3 main problems on their biggest life purchase: new homes. Many new homes are not being built properly. The OBC is not being enforced. There's no real accountability over Builder Control Ontario, the new home regulator, and there's an unfair dispute resolution process for homeowners. Question: Why did our government not adopt two solutions that would reduce these issues? One, get accountability from the ombudsman over Tarion, and number two, abolish the Tarion monopoly as the judge recommended.
Well, thank you. It's nice to see you again. And I know this is something that you have worked very hard on. And in fact, as you know, there's legislation that actually passed today that will make changes to Tarion and will divide the function so that there is more accountability. Because you're right, it is only right that people who buy new homes should have recourse. And so we have made changes, again, based on some of the advocates that have come forward, and we appreciate that. And as I say, I know that you've been on this for some time, and I appreciate your advocacy, and much of what you have advised has been put into that legislation. And that's as it should be, that we hear from people who have had experiences and work to make legislation fairer by hearing your concerns. So that legislation, it doesn't go as far as you are saying, that's true, but we have made changes to introduce accountability into that system. I think we're over here now, right? Okay, sir. There's a mic coming to you right now.
First of all, Madam Premier, welcome to City of Brampton.
Pleasure to be here.
I'll try to finish my question faster. One, do you believe a second full functional hospital for Brampton? One. And when time-bound action? Second, hydro rates. The third one is auto insurance is connected to the postal code. And Brampton residents are paying highest on auto insurance rates. Right? I've been paralyzed. I've been advocating with all my fellow members from.
So we want to make you
Yes. Canyon builders are forcing 10 years utility contracts with the new purchase of home. This is not fair at all to the residents' new buyers. Apart from 9 directors in Canyon are builders. 4 are nominated by province. We know they are not fair. So there is no consumer.
Sir, thank you so much for your question. Appreciate it. We've seen
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So I think I answered the question about Tarion. There was legislation that passed today that is changing the accountability, and our expectation is that it will be much fairer, it will be much better. On auto insurance, I know that this is a big issue. I'm sure there are many people in this room who are concerned about auto insurance. And the reality is that over the last number of years, we have worked to make some changes, but it's not enough. We know that there's more that we have to do, and we've had experts say to us that the system is broken, that it needs to be rebuilt, and so that's what we're going to do. Because what's happening right now is that there are expenses, there are costs in the system that, costs of fraud, costs of overbilling and over-treating and over-assessing that mean that your insurance rates go up disproportionately because of what you said about the geographic factors. So what we're going to do is we're going to work to take some of those costs out of the system, rebuild the system, and at the same time ask the agency, the organization that has carriage of auto insurance, to look at the geographic factor, to look at how we can have a fairer system that doesn't take the geographic factor and